Welcome all of you joining to the webinar today. So today we have Dr. Ravi Fernando, the Chairman and the CEO of Global Strategic Corporate Sustainability Private Limited as the resource person. I, on behalf of Heriot-Watt University, would like to warmly welcome Dr. Ravi Fernando to the session. He graciously accepted our invitation to be the guest speaker, and he will be delivering his speech on sustainability mindset leaders for 21st century. Further, it's a great pleasure to see academics and practitioners across the globe have registered to the webinar, and hence I hope we will be having a fruitful discussion of 30 minutes at the end of the 45 minutes of presentation, or maybe 1 hour's presentation, and you all are mostly welcome to this event. And we are hoping to have academics and students from the International Master of Industrial Management program as well. We would glad to present this webinar in collaboration with IIM Consortium. Last but not least, I would like to appreciate the presence of Associate Professor Dr. Shereen Nazar, the Head of Business School, Heriot-Watt University Dubai campus. And before starting the session, let me give you a brief introduction about Dr. Ravi. Actually, Dr. Ravi Fernando is an alumni of University of Cambridge, having completed a Master of Studies in Sustainability Leadership in 2014. He holds a Doctor of Business Administration degree from the European Business School in 2016. He completed the Advanced Management Program at INSEAD Business School, France, and is an executive in residence since 2010. He has an MBA from University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. In April 2020, he created the 21st Century Board Leadership Model Masterclass for the Institute of Directors of Luxembourg, which is currently run in Luxembourg, Ireland, and Sri Lanka. He is the Chairman and CEO of Global Strategic Corporate Sustainability Private Limited, which operates in Luxembourg, Ireland, United Kingdom, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka. His career with multinationals spanned from 1981 to 2000 with Unilever, Reckitt Benckiser, SmithKline Beecham International, covering Africa, Middle East, and Asia. He was the first CEO of Sri Lanka Institute of Nanotechnology from 2008 to 2011, and Operations Director of the Malaysia Blue Ocean Strategy Institute from 2011 to 2016. He was the first UN Global Compact focal point 2007 and set up the UNGC Sri Lanka network. He served the boards of Dilma Ceylon Tea Company, Ikan Spence Plantation Limited, UN Global Compact, Habitat for Humanity, LOLC Holdings, Ceylon Graphene Technologies Private Limited, Ceylon Asset Management and Global Strategic Corporate Sustainability Private Limited. In 2007, he won Global Strategy Leadership Award, presented him to by Professor Rain Merborn of INSEAD in the World Strategy Summit. He is a well-known speaker and a writer about sustainability. And thank you, Dr. Ravi, accepting our information. And without taking any time, please start the session. Over to you. Thank you.
Okay. A very good evening to all of those of you who have logged in from Dubai. I must say I had the pleasure of working and living in Dubai for 4 years, and I was just sharing this with the rest of the group. Thank you for inviting me, Professor Nilakshi and Professor Shereen. And today, what we are going to do is to talk a little about sustainability mindset business leaders for the 21st century. And you might wonder why are we looking at 21st century leadership? And the reason for that is explained in my agenda for today. What I am going to do today is first talk a little about 36 years of national and business leadership failure. Now, I must underline that statement by saying failure in terms of managing the climate emergency, not failure in terms of delivering results, because lots of companies have delivered excellent results. But now I'm talking about failure in terms of understanding the climate emergency that the world is faced with, and also failure in responding to the global risk reports from the World Economic Forum. So the first half of my presentation is simply to make all of you understand exactly why I am referring to a leadership failure and why I believe we are not responding to the global risk report that the World Economic Forum has talked about. And then I will move on to the positive side of what then is the 21st century board leadership model. And like Professor Nilakshi explained to you, this is a course we teach in Luxembourg. And we now have about 120 alumni who have finished this course in the last 1.5 years. And then moving to sustainability mindset. On the right-hand side of this slide, you see a couple of book covers and an announcement. The first announcement I want to get all of your attention to is an announcement made by Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, at the last 2 UN General Assembly meetings. So what did he say? He said, this is a code red for humanity. Now, for those of you who have understood the word code red for humanity, here he is referring to the climate emergency as a code red for humanity. Now, in other words, an emergency that needs urgent action and not delayed action. One of the terms that all of us get used to from the medical profession is we move a patient into the emergency room only if there is a crisis situation. Now, once we move a patient into the emergency room or the ICU, what if the doctors all decided they were going to treat the patient a week from then, a month from then, or a year from then? Now, that doesn't then really add up, because that means we are not taking the emergency seriously. This is what has happened in the world today, unfortunately, with a lot of leaders. And from the first heading, the second heading there is a cover of a book that influenced everything I have done in terms of creating the 21st century board leadership model. It's an excellent book I want to recommend to all of you. Please get your hands on it. It's titled 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Oxford University PhD Yuval Noah Harari, who also wrote 2 other books, Sapiens and Homo Deus. Now, one of the amazing things about this book was it inspired me to really create the 21st century board leadership model of 6 modules when I studied these 21 lessons and asked the question, how are we going to make sure every business leader, every national leader understands what these 21 lessons are? At the bottom, you have a book that's just got published and it is now on Amazon. And the book is titled 21st Century Leadership to Fight the Code Red for Business. This is basically bringing everything I have said here in terms of the model and in terms of sustainability mindset with case studies to accentuate the story. So that is my introduction. This is my agenda. And let's get down to our very first slide. So let me start by telling you that in 1987, 36 years back, the United Nations commissioned a special operation, and that commission was referred to as the World Commission on Environment and Development. This commission was headed by the then Norwegian Prime Minister, Brundtland, and she was asked to understand and report back to the United Nations on climate change and how it is affecting the global environment and global economies. This report was published in 1987. The report is titled Our Common Future. This report basically captures the essence of everything you and I are facing with the climate emergency in the world today. And sadly, this report, if it was understood and read, people would have realized that the simple message given in this report, if you look at it carefully, was that the world has now begun to reach a code red situation due to the burning of fossil fuels. And the more fossil fuels you burn, the hotter the planet is going to be because of the carbon dioxide that is going to get trapped in the Earth's atmosphere. And basically asking people, humanity, to move away from fossil fuels and move into renewable energy sources urgently. And this was the simple message given in 1987. Now we fast forward from 1987, the world has had many meetings, no shortage of meetings. In 1992, there was a big summit, which was referred to as the Rio Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And nearly 200 leaders of the world got together, and they suddenly realized that they hadn't done too much about addressing the climate emergency, and made a commitment of sorts at that time that by the year 2000, they will find a way to get to 80% renewable energy driven economies in the world. We come after that to 1997, when the Kyoto Protocol was discussed in Japan. And at this meeting, there was a lot of tension between the global north and the global south, basically saying we have to, who should move away from fossil fuels first, and not much happened at that time. In the year 2000, the Millennium Development Goals were launched, another attempt by the then UN Secretary General Kofi Annan to address the issues of the 1987 report. Then we come to fast forward to 2015, when the world's leaders, once again, almost 196 leaders, met in Paris and signed what was then known as the Paris Agreement. And in 2015, they said, we will make sure that by 2030, we will be 80% driven by renewable energy sources and achieve this in an accelerated way. Well, the bottom line is we are now getting close to 2030, and not much progress has been made versus the target of 80%. Lastly, we look at about 27 COP meetings have been held between 1992 and 2022, and the 28th meeting is being held in the Middle East in Dubai. And as we look at all these meetings that have happened in the last 36 years, one key point that comes to my mind is that there has been no understanding and acting on the science that very clearly confirmed that these Anthropocene or human-induced climate challenges had to be addressed by exiting fossil fuels or moving to renewable energy. And if one was to ask the question, all these leaders who have attended all these meetings from 1987 to 2022, 2023 now, did these national leaders understand the science that was coming out? Did they respond to the science? Did they act on it? Unfortunately, the answer we get is not really. We move forward to the reality of what we are facing today as a climate emergency. So what is the climate emergency? The climate emergency is where the planet is heating at an unprecedented level, and the heating of the planet is happening mainly due to the burning of fossil fuels, which then release carbon dioxide. And as you look at these figures, from a industrial revolution date of 1880, to 2022, the planet has heated plus 1.2 degrees centigrade when the tipping point is 1.5 degrees centigrade. In terms of concentration of parts per million of carbon dioxide, the figure has moved from about 280 parts per million to 420 parts per million. And this is past a tipping point of 350 parts per million. In terms of gigatons of carbon dioxide coming from the burning of fossil fuels, we have increased the use of fossil fuels from 39 gigatons to 60 gigatons, and we are increasing it further. So one of the things that have happened, as you can see in that inset, is we have kept moving the target to achieve 80% renewable energy driven initially in 2000. This has now got moved to 2030. This has now got moved further to 2050 and to 2070. This last year, we saw the Arctic, which is the coldest spot in the planet, the North Pole, recording a 45 degrees centigrade in July 2021. And the past 8 years have been the hottest 8 years ever recorded on the planet. And you can see temperatures are going up. The concentration of carbon dioxide is going up. And a young lady called Greta Thunberg, I think, explained this very nicely. She said, panic, our house, our planet is on fire. Now, if your house is on fire, what would you do? You will try to put the fire out, and you will probably call the fire brigade. What the world leaders are unfortunately doing, because they are ignoring the science and ignoring the urgency of the crisis, what they're doing is postponing calling the fire brigade. And just imagine if you have a fire in your house today and you call the fire brigade in 2050 to put it out, you're going to be left with ashes. And this is unfortunately the situation we are faced with the climate emergency. Now, let's ask the question, so have world leaders in recent times been ignoring science, or are they embracing science, respecting science, and are they acting on the science? So let me share with you some leaders who are all G20 leaders, which confirms my hypothesis that in the last 36 years, a majority of the world's leaders have ignored science and basically put profit before science, profit before people, and profit before the planet. And if you look at these five leaders I have mentioned, in the United States of America, we had a leader who basically denied even COVID-19 and recommended that patients start taking Lysol to cure their COVID, and exited the Paris Agreement. And fortunately, the leader who came after him got back to the Paris Agreement, and America is back on it. The second leader there is the leader from Brazil, who once again denied COVID-19, denied the science, also had unprecedented deforestation in Brazil, and continued to ignore the climate emergency. We also have a leader in Australia who basically ignored the climate change and denied science, and basically said that we needed to burn more coal for their energy requirements in the country. We have a British Prime Minister who lasted 37 days, who during those 37 days tried to resuscitate the fossil fuel sector by actually issuing exploration certificates, etc. And last but not least, we have the World Bank head who has resigned 1 year ahead of the time that he has to move out. And the pressure has come on him because he has been a science denier and a climate change denier. So if G20 leaders, like the ones I have mentioned, running the USA, Brazil, UK, Australia, are science deniers, then one can make the hypothesis that the last 36 years also, we have leaders who have ignored the science and not responded to the climate emergency as required in 1987 in the report, Our Common Future. So climate denial has been basically a situation that has seen at least five leaders lose their jobs in the last 2 to 3 years. I want to just mention one other fact that to date, the number one deaths due to COVID are, and number two are the United States of America and Brazil, who ignored science at the beginning of the COVID crisis. So we have a world of leaders who are basically ignoring the science. They are either ignorant of science or ignoring science. So let's now look at business leaders. A recent announcement was made on the 15th of February, 2 weeks back, by a fantastic leader of the Fortescue Metals Group, a gentleman called Andrew Forrest. And he made a very bold statement during the shareholders conference, where he was delivering half-year results. He said, people who do not understand the grave risk of climate change should not be in any position of influence. He went on to say, we are on a climate edge here. I want every legislator in the world to bring themselves up to speed with the science. In other words, telling business leaders and national leaders, we need to be absolutely understanding the climate emergency. Otherwise, you should not be involved in any position of influence. So I asked the question, can we risk having science denying or science ignorant leaders responsible for business in the 21st century? I'll leave you to understand that question and respond to it. But let me share some information for you to make that decision. The Climate Disclosure Project is a very important strategy to review whether companies have credible climate transition plans. They recently did a study of 18,600 companies who have done their CDP reports, and believe it or not, only 0.4% of companies had presented a credible climate transition plan. In other words, we are having a majority of the leaders of the businesses ignoring science once again, like they have done in the last 36 years, and along with national leaders. Only 81 out of the 18,600 companies disclosed against all 21 indicators denoting a credible transition plan. In other words, a majority of the businesses, 99.6% of the businesses, have ignored the science and have ignored taking clear strategies to move towards a credible climate action plan. So the second question is, do business leaders understand and act on the science? And the answer seems very clear. The answer is no. This is why we need to look at how we can develop a new cadre of business leaders. Because if you look at the Global Risk Report, which was just put out by the World Economic Forum after their meeting in Davos, the top 3 risks that are mentioned in that report are failure to mitigate climate change, failure to adapt to climate change, and extreme weather events. Failure of whom? And I have already answered that question. They are referring to the failure of national leaders to mitigate climate change and adapt to climate change, and failure of business leaders to mitigate climate change and to adapt to climate change. And of course, extreme weather incidents, which are now exacerbated as a result of the planet warming and heating because we continue to burn fossil fuels. And then here is an example of the damage extreme weather incidents are having on global economies. In the 70s, in an average year, the economic loss was about 17.5 billion US dollars in a year due to extreme weather. Fast forward to 2022, we are now losing 270 billion US dollars due to economic loss due to heating of the planet and extreme weather incidents. Today, if you put on your international weather report channel, whether it is CNN or BBC or Al Jazeera or Deutsche Welle, you will see at this very point in time, we are having unprecedented forest fires in Chile. We have unprecedented rainfall, 1 month's rainfall in an hour or two in New Zealand. We are having unprecedented snowfall in Los Angeles, and we are having heat waves across many countries in the world. So, can we risk leaders who don't understand science and who are not ready to act on the climate emergency, leading nations and leading businesses? And my answer is very clear. I have already given you that answer. So what have we got to do now, considering this fact-based report I have presented to you up to now? So what are the fossil fuels that cause the biggest damage to the planet? Burning coal. For every single gigawatt hour of electricity generated from coal power plants, it releases 820 tons of carbon dioxide. For petroleum and oil, it releases 720 tons of greenhouse gases. For using gas, natural gas, it releases 490 tons of carbon dioxide. Now compare that with the renewable energies. Hydroelectricity, 34 tons versus 800 to 490. Nuclear energy, 3 tons. Wind, 4 tons. Solar power, 5 tons. Now you can see why a 21st century leader who understands the science will act on the science and move away from fossil fuels and move towards renewable energy sources. And that is really the challenge that every single one of us have to work on in the coming years. So let's look at the current electricity generation as at 2022. China generates 61% of its electricity yet using fossil fuels, coal, which is the worst fossil fuel, delivering 820 gigatons of CO2. The second highest user is India with 74%. And then we can see USA at 20%, and the European Union has the best performance so far in moving to renewables at only 16%. Let's look at the renewable side. The best renewable performance within the European Union is leading with 41% into renewables and accelerating very fast with 22% in nuclear, which means they have about 63% in the renewable side. Whereas the other nations have yet some work to do. And the more coal we burn, the more the polar caps will melt. And as the polar caps melt, we begin to see unprecedented temperatures. And what we are seeing today is a world of organizations in the fossil fuel businesses who are continuing to burn the planet for profit, as opposed to moving from fossil fuels into renewable energy sources. You can see the temperatures that we are recording in most countries are above 40 degrees centigrade. Even Japan, and you can see China, Iraq, all getting put to the 50 degree centigrade mark because the planet is warming in an unprecedented way. And with the warming of the planet, what happens is you end up having the kind of floods that we are now experiencing in New Zealand and in so many countries. in Kentucky, worst flood scene in France, deadly deluge in Germany, 2 months rain in 2 hours in Taiwan, major flooding in Beijing, and Russia and Mexico City and Romania, Pakistan. Pakistan had a situation where nearly 20 million people, 1/3 of the population of Pakistan, were destitute with the floods in Pakistan last year. So this is what we call extreme weather incidents precipitated by the burning of fossil fuels. So what do we need to do then? Here is an excellent review of the number of extreme weather incidents that are pummeling the planet today. If you look at the 80s, we had about 3,000 incidents per 300 incidents per annum. We look at the last 2 to 3 years, we are having close to 600 to 650 incidents per annum. In other words, almost 2 incidents per day. This is, as you can see here, floods and storms account for about 75% of these extreme weather incidents. And these incidents are caused by the burning of fossil fuels. So this is what is happening right now. We are beginning to see the polar caps disintegrate, and that then will lead to a situation where we can begin to say goodbye to 1.5 degrees centigrade as the headline in the Economist magazine recently. And there is a 90% likelihood of at least 1 year between 2021 and 2025 becoming the warmest years on the planet. And the World Meteorological Organization and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have given all the scientific evidence to confirm that we are having a crisis. In fact, the Secretary General said recently that this report, IPCC 6th report, must sound a death knell for coal and fossil fuel before they destroy our planet. But as you can see, many nations are currently yet using coal power and fossil fuels for their energy and electricity. And this is the kind of damage that the economies will face. And as per the IPCC report, if we cross 1.5 degrees centigrade, we could see a damage to the global economy of about $50 trillion, as you can see there, in a global economy of $600 trillion. So I don't want to scare you any further. I want to now move on to a positive message to all of you. It is first and foremost, I hope, abundantly clear to every single one of you that the last 36 years from the time the Brundtland report or Our Common Future report was published, and which clearly said move away from fossil fuels to renewables, that world leaders and business leaders have ignored the science and have ignored the actions needed to fight the climate emergency. In the 21st century, therefore, the first characteristic of any national leader or any business leader who is a 21st century leader will be that they will be science-led and not ignore the science and not delay acting on the science. If you are a science, and you will not hear this in business courses, ladies and gentlemen, but let me tell you, whether it's a business course or a national leader training course, if this simple message is not accepted by leaders, we are going to suffer the consequences of the climate emergency and the code red for humanity. Being science-led doesn't mean that you're a scientist. It means that you will listen to the science. So when a doctor advises us on COVID-19, you won't ignore him. You will take his information and advice seriously. When the scientists in the World Meteorological Organization and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have clearly mentioned we need to move away from fossil fuels, then as a science-led leader, you will have an urgency to fight the climate emergency. In other words, you won't call the fire brigade in 2050. You will bring the fire brigade in now and start moving towards renewable energy sources. So to me, the first two characteristics of a 21st century leader, which is what is captured in this book, 21st Century Leadership to Fight the Code Red for Business. You will be science-led and you will have an urgency, therefore, to fight the climate emergency. If you are not science-led, then you will not have any urgency to fight the climate emergency. These are the first two characteristics of a 21st century leader. The third characteristic is that you will have a sustainability mindset where you will prioritize science, the planet, and people before profit. Now, I'm not saying that you start making losses. No business can exist without a profit margin and without a profit business model. But I will talk about that in a moment. The fourth and key characteristics of a 21st century leader is that they will look at the 21st century model, which I will share with you in a minute, and bring it to the board agenda. Now, let me also mention to all of you that 21st century leader is not a substitute for the MBA program you are doing or the master's program you are doing. This is a supplement to whatever education you're getting into the business world or in national leadership. This is basically addressing how one addresses the code red for humanity. So, renewable energy sources, we have four key sources: wind, geothermal, solar power, and hydro. As at today, these figures in total contribute under 30 to 35%. So in other words, we yet have 65% in fossil fuels. Like I showed you with China and with India and with some of the Western nations also, in fact, yet persisting with fossil fuels and gas. Natural gas is a fossil fuel. Let me put that very clearly to you. So, what is sustainability mindset? Sustainability mindset is an essential mindset for the 21st century leader, because a sustainable business leader, and let me start by giving credit to the person who created the term triple bottom line and the term sustainability. This was created by a British economist called John Elkington in a book he wrote titled Cannibals with Forks. So what is the essence of a sustainable or triple bottom line mindset leader? I already told you that the 21st century leader has to be science-led and ready to get advice from scientists and then act on the science. Just imagine if the leaders of the USA and Brazil listened to the doctor's advice during the COVID-19 problem, when it began to become a major global issue. If they had listened to this, they wouldn't have 1 million deaths in each of those countries. And those two countries would not be number one and number two for COVID deaths as at today. So now let's talk about triple bottom line mindset. The first element of a triple bottom line mindset leader is that he or she is committed to having a sustainable economic growth model for their business that delivers significant profits. And there's no question of any business leader not delivering on the profit model. Because if you don't have profits, if you're not a profitable company, then you might as well forget about it and close down shop. So the first thing is your business model must have a sustainable growth model. However, that sustainable growth model must not harm the environment, but must regenerate the environment. Now let's pause there for a moment and ask the question, the current business models of many companies and many countries, they're delivering good GDP growth and good economic growth, but they are directly harming the environment by burning fossil fuels, which are heating the planet and as the planet gets warmer, as the carbon dioxide gets trapped in the Earth's atmosphere, extreme weather incidents are beginning to impact every economy. There's no economy on the planet that is going to be saved from extreme weather incidents. And I already mentioned to you, extreme weather incidents are among the top 3 global risks. If you are a 21st century leader, you might as well understand what the global risks are and respond to those global risks instead of ignoring them. So you will have an economic growth model that does not harm the environment, but resuscitates and regenerates the environment. The second key element of a 21st century triple bottom line mindset leader is that business model will contribute to social progress and not harm society as you keep driving your economic growth. So I have come across many companies in the world who have amazing CSR projects. But let me tell you, I believe in the 21st century, the economic growth model that a business has that is not harming the environment. In other words, you have to be exiting fossil fuels for energy, for electricity, and for transportation, or move towards that. And at the moment, the last target was to do so by 2030 at the Paris Agreement, to be 80% driven by renewable energy, and 196 world leaders and business leaders signed up to that commitment. What happened to that commitment after that? So companies, I believe the future responsibility of any company is to its employees and to all its supply chain direct, indirect employees. They need to help these employees progress socially. That is a triple bottom line mindset, sustainable business model, which puts science, it gives respect to science first, puts people and planet before having a business model that is only generating profits. Most companies in the world, most nations in the world have a profit at any cost business model, and that is harming the planet much more than we can imagine. I have already given you the unbelievable impacts on that to the global economy and the projected impacts as we cross a 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees centigrade from the 1880 figure base year. And that is the danger we are facing. What's the point of delivering so much of profit if all that is going to get wiped away by an extreme weather incident? As has happened in many countries in Europe, as has happened in New Zealand the last month, as happened in Pakistan, as is happening in Chile right now, as is happening in the USA right now. So that is a triple bottom line mindset leader. So what is the 21st century board leadership model? And I'm going to spend a few moments giving you an overview of this model, which is the main item in the book 21st Century Leadership to Fight the Code Red for Business. So this model was created, as I mentioned earlier, inspired by the book 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Harari. And if you look at the top 3 items, I call them emergencies: the climate emergency, the health and social emergency in red, the climate emergency in green, and the economic emergency in blue. If I go back a slide, these are absolutely, all I've done is repeated the 3 big bulbs here of economic growth, environmental stewardship, and social progress. I've called it the economic emergency, the climate emergency for the environmental stewardship, and the social emergency for the social and health emergency. So the top 3 items in the 21st century board leadership model are looking at responding to these emergencies which need urgent action and not action as and when you feel like. And I can tell you, A 21st century leader is one who understands these three emergencies because of understanding science and responds to these emergencies with urgent action and not simply saying, I will handle the climate emergency in 2050, I will exit fossil fuels, or 2070. Ladies and gentlemen, the report by the World Meteorological Organization and the report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is talking of a crisis that's going to hit us by 2025. So if anyone is making any commitments to address the climate emergency, the health and social emergency, and the economic emergency with a business model that drives the economic growth but does not harm the planet but contributes to societal growth, then that person is going to attack these issues by 2025 and not one day later. Now, besides these three emergencies which need urgent action, there are three disruptors that are disrupting the world today. So what are these disruptors? Number one, we have the new technology disruption, which is now beginning to disrupt many a business. And you and I are hearing of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, mobilizing AI for strategy in business. I can tell you there will only two kinds of businesses in the future. Businesses who embrace new technology and businesses who ignore new technology. If you want to be a 21st century leader, you need to embrace technology. And AI, nanotechnology, 3D printing, robotics are some of the game-changing technologies that are now out there in the world today. And if you are a 21st century leader, you have to be a leader who understands new technology and mobilizes the right new technology for your business. Not every business has a common set of technologies. You have to mobilize the right technology for the right business. So understanding new technology, not being a CTO, not being the technology wizard in your company, but if you're a CEO, if you're a board member, if you're a C-suite member, or you're an aspiring young executive who is studying these subjects and wants to be playing a role in the 21st century, then you need to understand new technology. And let me tell you, one of the other amazing new technologies that I am directly involved in right now is the technology of graphene water desalination. In the Middle East, we desalinate water and at a very high cost of energy. But graphene, which is a new technology, can capture all the salt molecules at a much lower price. And I believe graphene water desalination will be a key new technology. So will be precision agriculture. Why precision agriculture? Because agriculture that depends on the rain cycle and is going to be pummeled with extreme weather incidents, you will have your supply chains basically disappearing in front of your eyes if these kind of extreme weather incidents continue to pummel the planet. So being a leader in the 21st century requires you to be absolutely abreast and knowledgeable about the new technologies, and then you can bring experts into your company if that your company is going to benefit from any of these technologies. And let me tell you, artificial intelligence is a no-brainer. Every company better start mobilizing AI right now. And there is no waiting to see if it is a good technology or not. And same with nanotechnology, and graphene technologies are some of the new nanotechnologies that are happening today. The next global disruptor is geopolitical disruption. Now, majority of the business courses that you and I follow, I can assure you that these three emergencies, climate emergency, health and social emergency, and the economic emergency. And the three disruptors I'm talking about aren't dealt with in comprehensive ways. As a result, this supplementation, I believe, is essential for you to be a relevant 21st century leader. So how does geopolitical disruption attack businesses? Just have a look at what is happening with the USA and China today. We can see the US is now moving to ban TikTok in China, the Chinese TikTok in the USA. And there are many geopolitical maneuvering that is happening between what I call the new geopolitical alignments of the Chinese and the Russians. And then you have also the South Africans, the Iranians, and then you have even some of the Middle Eastern countries in one corner, and then you have the G20 countries on the other corner. And I can see geopolitics beginning to play out much more than we have had before. Right now, you can see how that geopolitics has also led to banning the whole import of fossil fuels from Russia in the European Union. So these things are happening, and we can't be ignoring and ignorant. These are subjects that have to be mainstreamed in future business courses. Lastly, the sixth and final module that we teach in the 21st Century Board Leadership Model Masterclass is the governance disruption. So what is governance disruption? Governance disruption is where you intentionally put the planet and people before profit. That is when you are taking the 21st century leadership model seriously. But sadly, majority of businesses in the world, majority of industries in the world are putting profit before the planet. That is why we have a climate emergency and a code red for humanity. Lots of nations put profit before people. That's why we ended up with 1 million deaths of COVID in Brazil and the USA, because they tried to open the economies long before sorting out the problem. So these are the 6 modules. These are the 6 elements of the 21st century board leadership model. And the key message I'm giving to every single one of you is, whatever course you're studying, these 6 elements or these 6 agenda items must be now in any board agenda, must be in any C-suite agenda, must be in any strategy document, because you cannot ignore any of these 6 items as you develop a 21st century strategy for your company or for your organization. So this is giving you a quick overview of the 21st century board leadership model. And disruptors need strategic action, not urgent action like the emergencies. If your house is on fire, then you want to put the fire out urgently. But if you know that artificial intelligence is going to impact your business model in the coming years, you need to now act fast and bring in an expert who can advise you and take your business model to a place that you can address it. So this is the 21st century board leadership model. And I want to end this session today by sharing with you the names of some of the 21st century leaders who are science-led and have a sustainability mindset leadership strategy. Who are these leaders? Let me just take you through the leaders. And the good news for all of you is every single one of these people I'm mentioning, we have a case in the book, but today I want to share some of the amazing highlights of these 6 truly 21st century relevant leaders who are all science-led and who have a sustainability mindset. So let me start with the one on the extreme left. His name is Henrik Paulsen. He was the former CEO of a company called Ostad. Now, what is the magic about Ostad? And as I explain the magic about the Ostad company, I actually think that every single one of you listening to this course, listening to this session today in the Middle East, can take a leaf from his journey. Ostad, before it was called Ostad, was the Danish oil and gas company. If any oil and gas company says we can't go into renewable energy, this is proof you can and be very profitable doing that. Danish oil and gas was transformed to be Ørsted, the world's leading wind energy supplier, by Henrik Poulsen between 2009 and today. Today, Danish oil and gas no longer exists. They do not have a footprint in the energy business, but their new company, Ørsted, is now one of the world leaders in renewable energy and wind power. This is an excellent example of a science-led leader who has accepted the climate emergency and who turned his company to become a renewable energy giant. You can yet be in the energy business, but you need to be in the renewable energy business. And his business model, he's already among the top 5 renewable energy companies in the world. The company's target now is to be the #1 renewable energy company by 2030. And they will make it because they are already in the top 5. Sundar Pichai of Alphabet, another science-led sustainability mindset leader. Today, I can tell you from 2016 onwards, Google, as we know this company, is 100% driven and energized through renewable energy sources. 100% from 2016. The third leader on this list is Werner Hoyer, who is the head of the European Investment Bank. And I had the good fortune of writing a case study for the INSEAD Business School of the European Investment Bank. In 2021, the European Investment Bank made a decision that they will not fund any fossil fuel projects in the world after that. And their entire portfolio of nearly close to 100 billion euros is going to be invested doing the thing that is needed, which is investing in renewable energy sources, in electrification of transport systems, and in sustainable transportation. So Werner Hoyer, a true leader in the business. Yvon Chouinard, the leader of the amazing outdoor wear company Patagonia, was a man who is way ahead of his time. He created a business model which is driving economic growth, but does not harm the planet and helps social progress almost 20 years to 30 years back in Patagonia. And today I would say it is probably the best known brand in the US and probably the most sustainable business that anybody runs. Clearly a science-led sustainability mindset leader. Paul Polman of Unilever, during his time as the chairman of Unilever, launched the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan to make sure that the company moves to a sustainable business model, and he has achieved that for the company. Last but not least, somebody that all of you know, Elon Musk of Tesla. All his companies, whether it is his Tesla car company, as one of the lines I love about Tesla is running on gallons of sunlight. That's his line for Tesla. He has single-handedly set up 4 to 5 gigafactories, including gigafactories in the US, about to set one in Mexico, has a gigafactory in Berlin, has a gigafactory in Shanghai, and is discussing a gigafactory in India, is driving the electric vehicle market in an amazing way. Clearly a science-led leader And of course, all of you who are following Elon Musk know that Elon Musk has a PhD in science. So it's not surprising that he is science-led and has a sustainability mindset. And by the way, by creating a business model that is science-led and is sustainability mindset, he is already created one of the most valuable companies on the planet. In fact, the Tesla market cap is bigger than the combined market cap of all the other 10 car companies after that. And he's also amongst the top 3 wealthiest people on the planet. So if you do the right thing, if you create the right business, if you have a science mindset and have an urgency to therefore impact the climate emergency, which is what he's doing, taking cars off the road, which are driven by petroleum and diesel, you will then, if you have a sustainable mindset and have this business model, you will become one of the most profitable companies on the planet. And Henrik Paulson with Ørsted, Google, Werner Hoyer, Patagonia, Lever, and Tesla are all companies who are following that amazing model. And that is really the message I wanted to share with you, that the 21st century is for 21st century leaders who understand this business model, who review this business model in all their strategies so that you don't miss out any of these 6 key elements, and who drive the business to become a solution to the planet's climate emergency and code red for humanity, and not just a bystander who is contributing to the problem. So my last question to all of you as I end today's session is, can the Heriot-Watt University be the lighthouse for 21st century leadership development? In fact, I was listening to an excellent interview recently by your Vice Chancellor and one of your professors, and I was absolutely impressed with the commitment he was showing to make Heriot-Watt one of the lighthouse companies for sustainability in Scotland. I would go one step further and say, can Heriot-Watt University be the lighthouse for 21st century leadership development? And by doing so, create amongst every faculty, amongst every course that you are driving. And I heard that you have some amazing sustainable supply chain courses, leaders who are truly 21st century driven. Thank you very much for listening. And I want to hand this over now to Professor Nilakshi. We have 30 minutes for questions. Over to you, Professor Nilakshi.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ravi. Yeah, it's amazing presentation and very insightful and detailed. So we can go for one round of questions. Yeah, I think Dr. Shireen is raising the hand. Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Shireen.
Please open the video, Professor Shireen. Please open the video when you ask a question so I can see who is asking the question. Thank you, Professor Shireen.
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much about, for the amazing presentation and the way you designed the presentation and showed how the impact of climate change and the urgent need for response. So this was really great. And I would just start by asking question. This is very important, and we all understand the need for this response. But you mentioned that businesses focusing on making profit, and this is why they are there. And they always want to make a business case for any initiative, regardless the purpose of it, like to improve or to be more sustainable. But at the end of the day, the decision will be made based on a business case. So how do you think this can be justified now to implement these initiatives or to respond to these needs? And also, how can we enhance the awareness among businesses to implement these initiatives?
Thank you, Professor Shireen, for 2 extremely valid questions. As Professor Shireen very clearly pointed out, the purpose of business is to make a profit and has always been the mantra. And for a long time, it was shareholder profit at any cost. But now that has changed to creating sustainable value creation, not only economic profit. So I think the first key message that we need to give all future business leaders is that it is not simply about shareholder profit now, it is about stakeholder profit. And stakeholders are the planet, the shareholders, and the employees, and all the other stakeholders in the business. So the key message that everyone needs to understand, and as I pointed out to you, Professor Shireen, in the last 36 years, we can see that national leaders have all ignored the science. There's no question that even as recently as the last 2 years, national leaders in the G20 countries have ignored the science. So we have science ignoring national leaders. Now, we can't also have science ignoring business leaders, because those businesses will be part of the problem and not part of the solution. So I think there is an urgent need for our curriculums in business education to bring the concept of science-led business leadership in the future. Because if we don't bring the science-led item into the courses, then we will continue to develop more and more business leaders who think achieving profit at any cost is okay. But they will destroy the planet. They will contribute to destroying their own companies. Just imagine a company like Ørsted. Now they have become part of the solution. Just imagine if all the big oil companies in the world, from Saudi Aramco to BP to Shell, all of them started going into renewable energy also. My goodness. And they become profitable like Ørsted. They will be winning the battle for the planet. So I think the key message I would give Professor Shireen is that whatever course we are teaching in the world today, if any of your students are one day going to be a national leader or a business leader, they must get at least a Science 101 session in their curriculum so that they can be much more ready to appreciate science. So that is my response to your question, Professor Shireen. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much for this. I think this answer is great. And I think the awareness need to be there, and education is a key tool to enhance this awareness. I totally agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor.
Yeah, any other questions from the audience?
They can answer it direct or ask the question on chat, no problem.
We have Dr. Shai with us from Edinburgh University. Yeah.
Excellent. Dr. Shai, hello.
And we have Claude from Dubai University.
Excellent.
And Rebecca from UK.
Excellent.
And we have 2 other undergrad students and postgraduate student.
Fantastic.
Yeah, any questions from you?
I don't promise to know all the answers, but I promise to give you a solution.
I think Shai is typing his question.
Okay, somebody is typing a question. That's good. That's very good. Don't feel shy. I'm very happy to answer your questions to the best of my knowledge.
So since no question, can I follow up?
Okay, yeah, I'll just open microphone and camera. It's faster. So no, I don't have a question. I think it's just a great timing to have this this lecture, this session, this meeting.
Thank you.
It's just where we need it in Heriot-Watt, and we are working on achieving many sustainable goals. At the moment, I'm leading the Prime initiative in the Edinburgh Business School. So we are now applying to join Prime. And I really hope that we will submit it next month, but I hope that we will be accepted, and that will be a very important milestone where all faculty and students will be exposed to the SDGs. And hopefully when we will review our curriculum, most of the courses will refer to the SDGs, and so as researchers in their work. So yeah, I think that's just great. So thank you again.
Excellent, Shai. That's brilliant news. In fact, I managed to get all the business schools I'm involved in to all sign up to Prime. So you are making the exactly right decision. And I think the real challenge is balancing the urgency we need to bring these things into the curriculums, because as I mentioned, we are now, the UN Secretary General has called it a code red for humanity. And at the last COP meeting, he said something even more dangerous. He said, world leaders and business leaders are driving the car with the foot on the accelerator to climate hell.
He did.
Right?
He did.
So I think I'm thrilled that you're taking leadership on this, Shai, and I wish you all success to bring this course to the mainstream, because the faster we create 21st century leaders, the better for the planet and the better for the university and better for everybody. Thank you for your intervention. Thank you.
Okay, in future, if Shai is needed contacts of Dr. Ravi, I would be happy to share.
Oh, absolutely, anytime.
Yeah.
Any one of you can share whatever little I have. I'm happy to share with you.
Thank you.
Anytime, free of charge.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think Claude is typing a message.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Maybe he can open his.
I just want to say thank you. Okay. We are going to have another question from Mohammed.
Hello, Ahmed.
Yeah, it's
you can ask the question directly.
Not really questions. Actually, they want to thank you, Dr. Ravi. And yeah, so we are on time, and I would like to invite Professor Sherin to deliver a small word of thanks on behalf of University of Heriot-Watt.
I'm happy to share all my slides with all of you. So Professor Nilakshi has all my slides. Please make a PDF and send it to everyone who attended today's session. I'm happy to share it with everyone. Sorry, Professor Sherin, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. To be honest, I don't have the words that really express my gratitude to this great presentation, and I believe this maybe one session with you is not enough. Will maybe ask for more, and maybe ask you when you are maybe in Dubai to have in-person session and make it even open to public. So to part of you mentioned about how Heriot-Watt contribute or can be the lighthouse for 21st century leadership development. Part of it is just we develop the awareness about these serious issues. And we are already doing efforts on this here in Dubai, and as you heard from Shai in Scotland, and maybe I'm not sure if you are aware, we have Center for Logistics and Sustainability in Heriot-Watt, one of the most well-established centers in this area in Scotland. So we are making effort on this, but still, I think as you mentioned about stakeholders, so we need a stakeholder approach to have this collaboration in enhancing this awareness. And this can only happen when we have experts like you really sharing these issues from a very analytical point of view and showing the impact and what exactly we need. So we thank you so much for this great session, and we look forward to a future collaboration with you. And I also would like to thank Nilakshi for connecting us with you and for enjoying this amazing session with you. So thank you so much, Nilakshi, for making the effort and coordinating this session as well. So thank you, and I would like also to thank all our participants and our colleagues from Heriot-Watt who have joined us from Edinburgh, from Dubai. And we always promise to really connect with industry and enhance the awareness in different areas, and to also try, as we mentioned, all about new generation, but also one of the key points is also how to close the gap between new generations and senior managers who don't have the mentality of, as you mentioned in the beginning, so about sustainability and other aspects of the business. I think this is one important issue that also we need to maybe address in the future as well, to have this alignment and common language and understanding about how we operate as a business to achieve the business goals. So thank you so much for to everyone who joined, and we hope to welcome you again in future sessions in very important topics which interest all of us. So thank you, and wishing you a great day ahead. If you are, I don't know the timing you have. So everyone in UK, in Dubai. So wishing you a great day ahead. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shukran jazilan, Shireen.
Thank you so much. Shukran.
Shukran jazilan.